the opportunity of a lifetime must be seized in the lifetime of that opportunity. And for me, one of the things the Lord has spoken to me about is His plan for revival in the city of Atlanta. And it was in 2003 that I was in a time of prayer, and I had this inner vision. And the Lord showed me this R and this X and this R. And He said to me, racism and religion are the two key principalities that need to be taken down over the city of Atlanta so that the spirit of death would fall and come down, and that revival would be released in the city. And I knew that Atlanta had been called Terminus historically, and that spirit of death was represented in that name, the end of the eastern rail line, or terminus being a Greek word that speaks of death. And it was in that place of prayer I began to really understand that God had a plan to see revival released in our city. Well, it was just a little while later, I was in a car and I was driving, and I was just thinking about this racism and religion and revival and bringing down the spirit of death. And as it is sometimes, you kind of can question yourself, did you hear the Lord? So I prayed a little private prayer. I said, God, if that was you, would you just confirm it to my heart? And I just prayed that prayer, and when I opened my eyes, the car I was in, we were crossing a railroad track, and I looked up, and the very first thing I saw was this R, this X, and this R. And I knew the Lord was speaking. Racism and religion needed to be taken down over the city of Atlanta, and they needed to be replaced with reconciliation and revival. So it was later that year, 2003, that I got a phone call from a prophetic man in California, and he said, I have a word for you. And he said, I thought it was for someone in Stone Mountain, but he goes, I believe it's for you. And he said, the word is this: He's about to release a season of apostolic government to the city of Atlanta, and it's going to be followed by a massive move of the Spirit. Massive revival is coming to Atlanta, Georgia. And I heard that word, and I was just encouraged, because revival had been a key prayer point and burden of mine for many years. And I remembered that I had this tape that someone had sent me from Atlanta, and they said that there was a prophetic word on there that they thought would be pertinent to me. And so I took that tape, and I thought, well, I've already gotten one good prophetic word, let's just see what's on this. And I put that tape in, and on the tape was this prophetic man named Sean Bowles, and he was prophesying in Atlanta in 1996. And he was describing this encounter he'd had with the Lord when he had been at Stone Mountain Park earlier that day. And as he was at Stone Mountain, he was viewing this statue that had been brought in for the Olympics. And this statue was a statue of 5 different horses, and the statue was entitled "The Day the Wall Came Down." But the middle horse had this saying from Martin Luther King Jr., I have a dream. And while he was there viewing the statue, the Lord began to speak to him. And the prophetic word was this, that God was releasing a season of apostolic government to the city of Atlanta, and it was going to be followed by a massive move of the Spirit. A massive revival was coming to Atlanta. When I heard that on the tape, I was absolutely blown away, because it was the same prophetic word that I'd received on the phone just a few minutes before. Well, he went on to say this: the Lord was going to change the testimony of Stone Mountain. It was now going to be a place of unity and healing, and that he was going to light up Stone Mountain with the glory of God. And then he said this, that the sign that this prophetic word would come to pass is that a plane would crash into Stone Mountain. So I thought, let me read this letter again and see what it says. And the letter that had come with the tape told me that a plane had in fact crashed into Stone Mountain in 2003, even 7 years to the day that the prophecy had been given. So fast forward now to 2016, and it was the 10th anniversary of IHOP Atlanta's 24/7 worship and prayer. And Lou Engle, our dear friend, was going to come and speak that night on our 10th anniversary. So he gets here and he says, Billy, I've got to talk to you. I've just been in the Houston airport and I ran into Sean Bowles. He goes, and Sean told me to tell you that the word for Atlanta is still on.
I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. Let freedom ring from Stone Mountain of Georgia.
This is the time and this is the hour that the Lord wants to bring down racism and religion and release revival. See, it was in 1915 that the Ku Klux Klan, for the very first time, burned a cross publicly. And the place they did that was on the top of Stone Mountain.
You're going to a place where historically sin has been allowed to dwell. And I believe that if freedom rings, and Dr. King said this, he said, let freedom ring. So ringing freedom may not have been in his life. We may be carrying actually the legacy of Dr. King even now. I think that for pastors, this is hugely important for us to recognize how we have to lead the way in reconciliation. I believe right now it's so very vital for the church leadership, having a reconciled heart to come together, cry out to God, and come against that stronghold of racism.
I believe the Lord has marked Atlanta as a gate city, and He wants to visit this gate city with kingdom authority and release power on the church that will birth massive revival. And when Atlanta falls to the kingdom of God, the Southeast will fall to the kingdom of God, and the nation will feel the wave of the power of God's move of the Spirit and revival.